Well, here we are at lesson 90,
Wow.
the end of review 2 in the course. This is a big moment, and we've got a couple of listener questions that have come up during this review that we want to address today. So let's dive into lesson 79. Okay, I'll let you take this one.
Let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. Let me realize today that the problem is always some form of grievance, which I would cherish. Let me also understand that the solution is always a miracle with which I let the grievance be replaced. Today, I would remember the simplicity of salvation by reinforcing the lesson that there is one problem and one solution. The problem is a grievance. The solution is a miracle. And I invite the solution to come to me through my forgiveness of the grievance and my welcome of the miracle to take its place.
One problem, one solution. That sounds deceptively simple, right? Someone listening to this might think, well, that doesn't really take into account all the complicated stuff I'm dealing with.
Well, that's kind of the whole point, you see. The Course is suggesting that beneath all the different problems we seem to have, there's actually just one root cause.
And that problem, as this lesson states, is a grievance. But when the Course talks about a grievance, it's not just like being annoyed at someone who cut you off in traffic, is it?
Not quite. A grievance in the Course is much broader than that. It's any kind of judgment or resentment or unforgiveness that we hold on to. It's that belief that we've been wrong somehow, and that we cling to these past hurts, and then we project them onto our present. So for our listeners, this could be anything from, that critical thought about a coworker to a lingering resentment over something that happened years ago.
These are the things we need to pay attention to.
Yes, exactly.
So let me ask you this. If you're constantly stressed about work deadlines or if you're frustrated in a relationship, is the Course saying that deep down, those feelings are all coming from a grievance?
Yeah, essentially. On the surface, it might look different, work pressure versus relationship problems. But underneath it all, there's this resistance to what is. This feeling that we've been treated unfairly or burdened in some way. And that resistance, that judgment, that's the grievance.
And the solution the Course offers is a miracle. But again, not like a supernatural event, right? It's something different.
Right. A miracle, as the Course uses the term, is a shift in our perception. It happens when we choose to forgive and let go of the grievance.
Yeah.
Forgiveness allows for a new understanding, a recognition of the love and unity that's always there.
So it's like we're removing the obstacle that's preventing us from seeing clearly.
Exactly.
So by forgiving the perceived wrong, we're not just getting rid of negative emotions, we're actually making space for the solution to come through.
That's the idea. The lesson really emphasizes the direct link between letting go of the grievance and embracing the miracle, the corrected perception. It's a whole new way of approaching our challenges.
And we have a listener question that speaks directly to this. The question is, does this mean it doesn't really matter what I think the problem is? I think a lot of people struggle with this idea. How can something that feels so real and so important, on the surface, not actually be the main issue?
Well, the Course says yes, ultimately it doesn't really matter what we think the specific problem is.
But why not? It seems counterintuitive. Like, if you're dealing with a serious financial problem, how can that not matter?
The Course explains that our ego actually creates a whole bunch of seemingly separate problems. Money troubles, relationship issues, health worries, you name it. All of this is a way for the ego to maintain the illusion of separation and fear. By getting us focused on these individual problems, we stay trapped in that ego framework.
So it's all smoke and mirrors to distract us from what's really going on.
Precisely. The Course is saying that all these different problems we face, they're really just symptoms of one deeper issue. The belief that we're separate from God and that we're buying into the ego's fear-based thinking.
And that deeper issue, according to lesson 79, is the grievance.
Exactly. If we stay fixated on the details of a problem, how much money we're missing or the specifics of a fight with someone, it keeps us at the surface level. What we need to focus on is the underlying content, the emotional charge, the judgment, the grievance. That's the constant factor.
So whether I'm upset about a missed opportunity or someone's unkind words, the Course is saying it's the same mechanism at play.
That's right. It's the act of judging, of holding on to resentment, of refusing to forgive, whether it's ourselves or others. It's that belief that we've been wronged and the insistence on holding on to that perception. And that includes dwelling on the past and letting those past experiences color our present.
And the solution, as always, is the miracle.
Yeah, the miracle is that willingness to let go of the grievance through forgiveness. It's not about condoning bad behavior or pretending that something didn't happen. It's about releasing the emotional and mental hold that the judgment has on us. And this shift in perception allows us to recognize the oneness that the Course talks about. You see, the atonement is the undoing of that mistaken belief in separation. And forgiveness is how we actually experience this atonement in our everyday lives. By letting go of grievances, we start to recognize that underlying unity.
So going back to the example of financial hardship, the Course isn't saying that the money will just magically appear. It's saying that by addressing the underlying grievance, maybe a belief in lack or resentment about past financial situations, our perception changes. And maybe the problem resolves itself in unexpected ways, or maybe the way we experience the problem changes completely.
That's a really important point. The focus isn't on manipulating the external world, but on transforming our internal state. By letting go of the grievance, the problem might be healed externally, or even more importantly, we might see that it has no power over our inner peace.
So the Course is encouraging us to look beyond the story of the problem, the specifics, and really try to identify the underlying grievance and then forgive that grievance, because that's how we open ourselves up to the miracle, to the shift in perspective.
Exactly. The Course wants us to recognize that all these different problems are really just the ego's attempts to keep us in fear and separation. And forgiveness is what unravels that illusion.
Which brings us to lesson 80. Ready for this one?
Okay, let's hear it.
Let me recognize my problems have been solved. I seem to have problems only because I am misusing time. I believe that the problem comes first, and that time must elapse before the problem can be worked out. I do not see the problem and the answer as simultaneous in their occurrence. That is because I do not yet realize that God has placed the answer together with the problem, so that they cannot be separated by time. The Holy Spirit will teach me this if I will let Him, and I will understand it is impossible that I could have a problem which has not been solved already. This is a pretty mind-blowing concept, wouldn't you say? The idea that our problems are already solved, it really challenges our usual way of thinking about time and how things happen.
It does. The lesson is saying that our experience of having problems is actually coming from a misunderstanding of time. We tend to think that a problem happens and then we need time to find a solution and then implement it. Problem, process, solution, all in a neat little timeline.
Yeah. We naturally think of things happening in a sequence. Like if your car breaks down, you have a problem now, and the solution, getting it fixed, is something that's going to happen later.
Right. But the Course proposes a different reality. It suggests that the problem and the solution aren't actually separated by time. They occur simultaneously.
Wait, how is that even possible? It goes against everything we experience in our daily lives.
The Course explains that the answer to the problem is already present at the same time that the problem appears. We just can't see it because our understanding is limited, and we're stuck in this linear perception of time.
And the lesson mentions the Holy Spirit as a guide to help us understand this.
Right. In the Course, the Holy Spirit represents a different way of seeing things, a perspective that's aligned with the wholeness and the already resolved nature of reality. If we open ourselves to the Holy Spirit's guidance, we can begin to grasp this idea that problems and solutions exist simultaneously.
So the message here is pretty radical. It's impossible to have a problem that hasn't already been solved.
Exactly. It shifts our focus away from struggling to find solutions in the future and towards recognizing the pre-existing solution in the present moment. The solution is there. It's just often hidden by our misperceptions and grievances.
This actually leads perfectly into our second listener question. They're specifically asking for a real-life example of how this works.
Let's hear it.
The question is, can you provide a major real-life example to show how the idea, it is impossible that I could have a problem which has not been solved already, works?
Oh, okay.
So how do we actually see this principle in action?
The Course suggests that any problem we encounter is actually an opportunity to recognize and release our belief in separation. When something challenging happens, we need to look beyond the surface details and understand that the real issue is how we're perceiving it. And by shifting our perception through forgiveness and embracing the atonement, we allow that already solved solution to show up in our experience. Imagine someone who's going through a really tough time financially. Their focus is likely on the lack of money. They might be feeling stressed, anxious, and scared about the future.
That's a very real and relatable experience for a lot of people.
Absolutely. But the Course offers a different way of looking at it. To apply this principle that the problem is already solved, the person would be encouraged to examine their beliefs about abundance and their own worthiness to receive it.
And forgiveness comes into play here too, connecting back to lesson 79.
Yes, absolutely. By forgiving themselves for any perceived failures and forgiving others they might blame for their situation, they start to release the fear and judgment that keeps that belief in lack alive.
So it's an internal shift that's needed.
Right? When they align their mind with the truth of their inherent connection to love and abundance, they open themselves to receiving the solution that's already there. It could be a profound change in their perspective that brings them inner peace, regardless of their financial situation.
So it's not about fixing the external problem, it's about correcting the inner misperception.
Precisely. The core shift is moving from seeing the problem as purely financial to understanding their own thinking. And according to the Course, when that perception is corrected, the problem is, in essence, solved. The external situation might change, but even if it doesn't, their experience of it is transformed.
The key takeaway here is that the Course isn't denying the reality of our experiences. It's guiding us to change how we interpret them. Every problem we face becomes an opportunity to look inward and correct a misperception.
That's right. It's about recognizing that the solution isn't something we need to find out there in the future. It's a state of mind that we can access right now by letting go of the grievances that are blocking our awareness of it.
As we wrap up this review, it's amazing to see how connected the ideas in Lessons 79 and 80 are, and how these listener questions really bring those ideas to life.
I agree. The concept of one problem rooted in grievance, with its immediate solution in forgiveness, leads directly to this understanding that all problems are, in a sense, already solved. And our work is to align our perception with that truth.
It leaves us with this question to ponder. If all problems do come from this one source and their solutions are already in place, where does our true agency lie? Maybe it's in the act of shifting our inner perception. Maybe that's what ultimately changes the reality we experience. Thanks for joining us on this exploration as we reach this important milestone in the Course. It's been a pleasure.
It has.